The Guardians' West Coast swing continues. We'll talk about the picture the Guardians will be in when they come back home. We'll talk trades, draft targets, and scouting grades on a mailbag edition of Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to another episode of Locked On Guardians. It's a Trade Talk Tuesday edition of Locked On Guardians, the way things are shaping up. It's a mailbag edition. Thanks for being here with us every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We cover your Cleveland Guardians every day, from the majors to minors, the draft, everything in between. We'll certainly get into all of that today. It is our favorite half hour of the day. We hope it's your favorite half hour as well, where we're talking Cleveland Guardians. I'm Justin Latta. I have been providing prospect analysis for the Guardians farm system since 2007. You can find all of my analysis as well as prospect scouting grades at places like Next Year in Cleveland on Substack and the Morning Journal and the News Herald. And of course here, 5 days a week, my friend and co-host and draft expert, Jeff Ellis.
Well, I don't know if I want to say draft expert, but I will recommend going back and checking out last week's show if you want to hear more on Gage Wood, since I talked about him a bunch.
We'll get into more Gage Wood today, I think.
I mean, I already did a whole scouting report. It seems silly to dive too deeply when I did it last week. You can go listen to last Wednesday's show if you want more in depth on him. I am Jeff Ellis, one of the two hosts here, one of the first hosts when Locked On decided to expand into baseball. Before that, I was a national writer at Scott 24/7, focused on prospects and the draft and dealing with comments. I feel like part-time therapist anymore. Boy, do people just want to look for any reason to be mad. The internet is just a rage machine anymore. Let's be very honest. I want to thank all of our everydayers, coming out and joining us, win, lose, and frustrations. We appreciate you coming and letting us talk to you. And I want to say thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get podcasts.
Yep, we're still here for you every day. And yesterday we were talking about how, man, it was frustrating to do the podcast yesterday because this team is just very frustrating right now. And I'm not someone who really likes off days in baseball. Like, I love watching baseball. So the fact that the Guardians had a Thursday and a Monday off before 3 games, I was like, man, that's not a lot of baseball to watch, and it stinks. And we're under 100 games left in the season. But I was like, you know what? Monday might have been a good day for an off day, because I didn't even watch the College World Series on Sunday because I was just so frustrated with baseball. I had to turn on something else. I've been watching Scrubs. That's my my comfort show, Scrubs and Suits. When I'm upset or annoyed, I put those shows on for my comfort. Comment below what your favorite comfort show is. Mine is Scrubs and Suits. Jeff, what's your favorite comfort show when you're frustrated?
I've been going with Taskmaster a lot on YouTube right now. It's a British show. Catching up on old seasons that I had missed in the past. So I've just been doing that. It's a comedy show. I highly recommend it. It's all on YouTube, so you can just catch the whole run there.
We watched Stick tonight on Apple TV in lieu of baseball, which is Owen Wilson as a golf instructor. And I think we're 4 episodes in. It's pretty good. I highly recommend it.
I listened to Mark Maron's podcast, so I heard all about that show's development.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know who that was. My wife's like, oh, Mark Maron. We should probably move on to baseball topics before AI tells us our first segment had nothing to do with what we promised to talk about. Baseball. Yeah, we talk about golf and TV shows. That's where things are right now. Because I want to avoid the obvious. Our first mailbag question today comes from our friend Aaron, who is ditching the Guardians on Tuesday to go see the Nationals and Rockies. So Aaron is a baseball lifer and is willing to watch depressing baseball no matter what, because I think the Rockies are more depressing than the Guardians. But Aaron suggested that if the slide continues for the Guardians, will they trade Emmanuel Clase?
No.
This is an interesting. You say no. See, I'm.
They're not going to sell low right now. His value is low after the rough start in the last postseason. They never sell low. It's a full no because they don't do that. They're not going to sell when his value is at 50%. So it's a no because they don't. That's just not how they operate. They never sell a distressed asset unless they think it's an asset who is completely giving up on. They're not going to sell him because his value has been lowered by the postseason and the start of this year.
I wonder if it has, though. I think there are smart teams out there that realize it's lower than it was a year ago for sure, but I don't think is it going to get any higher? Like, is it going to go up again next year?
I mean, if he performs well, it's still a monstrous, easy contract. And I think the bigger thing too, it's like there are 3 wild cards. Like the Guardians have played very, very badly of late, right? Do you agree with that? You know how many games they are out of the wild card?
I'd call it mediocre.
You know how many games out of the wild? they're one game out of the wild
one
card.
game. I know.
So it's like at the same time, they're
they
not
were
going to sell. No
also
one sells anymore for a reason. Like a Clase gets traded in the offseason, not the season.
You're wrong. You're wrong because the Guardians sold in 2023 when they were a game out. Remember, we knew they were out, and everyone was mad they didn't buy in.
They traded a Savali who was at a peak. I don't even know if that counts as selling because that guy.
They were gonna trade Bieber if he was healthy. They were going to trade Bieber.
But he wasn't, and we all knew he wasn't. Like, I mean, I know they talked about it, but like,
he was. They were going to trade him.
They were going to move on from their hurt arms.
They were almost out of. They were pretty much. I mean, even though they were one game out, the team felt like it was out of playoff contention, and they were not a serious contender.
Yeah.
And they're kind of tracking that way right now. Like I don't look at this team and say like this is clearly a playoff team that can do damage in the postseason. Like
I feel much better about this team than I did that squad. That squad, like you go and look at the lineups and the guys they had in, and I mean even that year, like Quan struggled. He spent most of that year as like a league average or slightly below bat. They didn't have anything. Like it was Naylor got hurt for a long period of time. You had Jose, and that was it. Like we complain about the offense now. It was even worse that year. I mean, look at the players they ran out in the
great second half when he came up.
Yeah,
so let me ask you this. Let me ask you this off Aaron's question because you're saying they won't do it at the deadline. Let's say he pitches really well the rest of the year. Does this season lead them to listening for Clase and I guess listening and trading are two different things, but do they approach that conversation more in the offseason? Because I think they do. I think they're at a point where they might.
I don't think they do. And the reason I say I don't think they do is because the thing with Clase is he is a locked-in value, and he also keeps the bullpen cheaper in general because him being back there means that everyone else is locked into other roles that don't generate saves. If you don't generate saves, it keeps your arbitration values down. He's helping cost control the entire bullpen in the role he's in, and they have a high valuation. That's where they spent money in this offseason was to add more pitching because they knew you can never have enough. So I think he's here, maybe like final year, but I don't think until final year, they're really going to visit trading him because, they don't have Cade Smith locked in. They don't have Hunter Gaddis locked in. They don't have any of their back end arms, or zero of them are locked in. And you just had Walters get hurt. You just had, Enright the year before could barely pitch. Like having a guy like Clase who's never
history.
Yeah. Clase who has never had an injury. Like there's a lot of value
I mean, you could still revisit the contract talks with Cade Smith if you really want to do that. And it does not help you that guys like Walters had surgery and, but you got Stefan coming back, which again is no guarantee, especially this year or next year. But I would revisit it only from the standpoint of if you can get a really good offer for him, good closers like this still generate really good offers. So this is an imbalanced team right now. I don't know where they target because Alex was asking us who are the targets for Clase trades.
But I don't honestly know. For now, like those trades have never been about help for now trades. So then you're just completely everything down the line.
You can do it where you can have someone who could help this year and then
you're not going to get anyone to help for this. These trades never, when you trade for a reliever, a high end one, it is never for guys who help now. It's guys who are 2 to 3 years away.
Yeah, I have to think of an example, like the Josh Hader trades. Like,
that was a lesser player back, left. And he was struggling at the time, and that return was not much. That was a pretty weak return when you look at where Josh Hader was at that point. I live in Milwaukee. It was pretty reviled here.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of other examples here because we talked about Andrew Miller, and that was all pieces that were a couple years away.
I mean, you look at Diaz, that was Kelnick after
Cano. Well, that was. Kid. Well, they also attached Cano to that to dump his contract, so I don't think that's a fair comparison because they were trying to salary dump Cano.
Kelnick was a really high value guy, and so was Dunn. Those are 2 recent first round picks, but they're far away. Teams aren't trading. If you're going all in, which you are, if you're getting an elite closer, you're not trading guys who can help your team now in that deal. You are trading pieces that are further away. So just you're going to have to settle for guys in high A. Maybe they're touching double A. Like you're not going to get help for now. So the point in trading him, then it's this. You're just kicking the can. Could
you get a guy who was at Manzardo's level where he's like a year away from contributing and then some other guys down the road?
We haven't seen that in relief trades though. I'd
have to go back to more specific examples of that. Like this is forever ago, but Craig Kimbrell going to the Padres, that netted Max Fried, but of course he was a recent pick. He was
far away.
I think you're right. Those are. It is, yeah. All right, so we're on different sides of the fence in terms of Clase trades. I think they could revisit it in the offseason. We have to talk about Shane Bieber. Our next question is about whether or not the Guardians will trade Shane Bieber. Will Jeff and I be on the same side of that discussion? Nope. We will talk about that next on today's Locked On Guardians.
Get the supplies you need from the site made for skilled traders. SupplyHouse.com. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. You can see I'm recording in a basement. I got an HVAC over there that I have issues with all the time. I'm getting special filters now due to my kid's allergy. I can get all of that at Supply House. I know we talk about skilled traders with them, and if you are a skilled trader, it's a great program because you have a dedicated phone line, which you don't get anywhere anymore. Good luck finding a human when you need help. But you can use Supply House if you're just you and me and you need to get specific things for your house. Again, I'll talk about the Trademaster program, exclusive perks and dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. So join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com.
Back to the mailbag on today's edition. Thank you for all giving us all these great questions to go off of. We've got so many good ones. We'll probably jump into some on Wednesday's episode as well. If you want to get in on the mailbags, make sure you are checking out our insider program. That is joinsubtext.com/LockedOnGuardians. Chat with all of our insiders, giving them early information, providing some analysis. We're doing that meetup on Tuesday as well, virtually. So if you want to get on that, sign up for that as well to get the link to chat with us at 8 o'clock Eastern on Tuesday night. All right, the Bieber trade. Will or will there not be one is the real question. This is from Ethan. If they fall out of the picture, would Bieber be a trade asset for them, and what value would he have? Well, as far as the value is concerned, I think it's we don't know because he has to come back and pitch well. Like for him to have any value, we need to know that he's coming back and pitching at anything what he was before. And that is a complete uncertainty right now because he hasn't faced any real hitters outside of Arizona, and he just had a setback. It was a minor setback, thankfully, but that's going to impede his value. He's going to have shorter time now, so I think the value is going to be a little diminished based on that. I do think that if Cleveland feels they are not a strong playoff team before the deadline, maybe the day of the deadline, and Bieber is pitching well, I think they'll talk to him first before they do it. But I do think they would consider trading Bieber if they are not serious contenders and he is going to get them something of value. I think they will go out and they will listen for offers. And if they get something they think is worth their time, they might bring it to him first and then decide to pull the trigger.
I disagree because Shane Bieber came back here to be comfortable in his return. And by the time the trade deadline rolls around, he's only going to have had a few starts. And this is part of why they're such a well-respected organization, is they do listen to players. They do think about players and have that in mind. Bieber came here specifically. He signed less than he could have gotten on the open market. We know that, to come here and be in an organization where he felt safe and comfortable to try and rebound. I don't think they will trade him because that goes against likely what they talked about in the offseason with him. Like when he signed that contract and there was the option year and everything else, and the fact that he took less money was because he wanted to rehab in a place he knows, in a place he is comfortable, where he is not going to risk, overuse, being used in the wrong way or abused. This is a guy who was a middling pick who was never really cashed in. And in his first chance to get cashed in, he was hurt. I don't think they trade him because I don't think he will want to be traded. I think he wants to be in a safe place where he knows what he's doing. If he goes to a team who's contending, they might overuse him. They might use him in the wrong ways. And I think he is going to want to try to build up his strength. There's just not going to be enough starts for him to feel comfortable flipping to another org, another city, when he's only ever been in Cleveland. So I don't think they do it just because that's not how they operate.
You're not wrong. I mean, I definitely agree with you from that standpoint, but I do think they will entertain it and they will at least ask his opinion. It just depends on where they're at and where he's at, honestly. I think if Bieber pitches well at all this year, I don't think he's going to be here next year one way or another anyway. That's the plan. So I think they would consider doing it if they felt like, because you can't offer him the qualifying offer.
Yeah, they can. They didn't offer to him last year, so they can offer to him at the end of this year.
So if he declines his half of the option,
you can give him the qualifying offer. Yes.
Okay, so you know what? I'm changing my mind then, because you want to know what? the qualifying offer is more likely going to
Yeah.
be a better return for him than what they could get in a trade at this point. I don't think a trade this time with this limited window of him will not exceed the value of the draft pick for the qualifying offer. So I'm changing my mind. The draft pick, yeah. So Bieber is staying just based on the fact that Cleveland would probably get more by just slapping the qualifying offer on him if he pitches well. So that's not because I mean, your reason was very compelling, I will admit, but I think my larger stance on this now is based on the draft pick having better value than what they would get in a trade. All right, Jeff, let's move on to the draft a little bit. We're going to offer everybody on the show today major league stuff, trades, minor league stuff, draft, and prospects. So I didn't get a name on this one. So if you ask this question, let me know who you are. And thank you for the question. But this is obviously aimed more at Jeff than it is at me. But I've got some thoughts. But they want to know what specific players the Guardians have eyes on in the draft. Who do you hope they have eyes on? Now, Jeff did say last week, he talked about Gage Wood. Gage Wood obviously had a 19 strikeout no-hitter on Monday, which was very fun to watch. He also threw 120 pitches. My God, that's terrifying.
For a guy with shoulder issues to begin with, that is not as fun.
Yeah, I don't love that. It was a great performance. And I also want to say too, like in terms of like well, Jeff, you went over his Cape Cod success, which is also a big indicator for them. I was watching the post game.
I think he's going to be 21 in July.
And I was watching the post game interview with him after the no hitter. And one of the players on Murray State that he struck out in the ninth inning happened to be a former high school teammate of his. And the first thing he did after the no hitter, and the first thing he talked about in the interview was how he went over and talked to that player and hugged him. And, you know, he said he works out in the offseason, he loves the kid. And so that's character right there. We know how much the Guardians value character right now. So that's another, you know, point in his favor for being a Guardians type. Jeff, who else do you hope they have eyes on? We've talked about some other guys before. I mean, we've mentioned the Ethan Conrads. I think you and I both don't believe a college hitter is happening here. I just don't think they are.
I think there's an outside chance. I think it's probably, here's the thing, like you and I kind of discussed the idea of a prep hitter, but it's a really kind of bad prep hitter class. So it's like, I know a lot of people, like I got a text from a friend of mine today. It's like, who are they going to take there? I'm like, it's going to, so much of it depends on who falls. Like every year someone falls.
Right.
It's, you know, I don't see Steele Walker falling. Like, you know, I don't see a lot of those solid, there's a lot of infielders in this class. I mean, it's like maybe Kyson Cunningham falls, but the more I watch him, the less I want him. Like he's old for the class. I don't think they would take him. And it's like a one hit, one tool type of guy who may not play short. So like, I still would, to me, the guy who's going to be there, it's probably going to be the best value in terms of my scouting report is probably Devin Taylor. Indiana has been very quietly producing a lot of really good talent. That's where Nick Mitchell, who they traded for a year ago, came from. Corbin Dickerson had a huge turnaround after coming from Louisville and barely playing. You know, Tim Herron, as you said, they've started to kind of blanket on the reliever who the Brewers called up this year, but they've been really producing talent. Devin Taylor has hit at every single level. He is plus maturity team player type of guy. That's who I would like. If you're looking at a bat, it's like, I don't know, maybe there isn't a great.
We've talked Fisher. We've talked about Andrew Fisher.
He's just not their type. Like, let's be honest, at the same time,
no.
He's not their type.
Yeah.
Like, he gets mocked there because people are trying to find a landing spot, but he doesn't have Cape data in my, at least maybe I'm wrong, but I don't remember Cape data there. I mean, I think Caden Bodine would kind of be a disaster. I don't see
much as I like Bodine. I think the lack of pop really hurts.
Yeah.
But
So it's like
when does this team care about power? But the one thing we do know in the first round is they will take gambles in the first round. They do not go for safety in the first round.
No,
last time
which is what Bodine is. That's where I'd like.
Right.
You know, it's like.
Although I guess you could consider, well, Bazzana was ceiling and floor, but that's a different
story. I mean, it's also 1-1. It's a bit of a difference thing there, but like when they picked us back in the first round, they've gone for. I mean, honestly, I think it could be a college pitcher. It's like last time we kind of picked in this range.
Gavin Williams.
You know, it was Gavin Williams. It's like
he was a risk too. He was
with his back. It's like there's Forbes, there's Wood, there's Zach Root. You know, those guys are all kind of in this range. Yeah, I mean,
I think Gage Wood is pushing his value up.
He is because he's had limited reps. So that's why this game matters more than it does for other guys. I think Patrick Forbes is a guy to watch because, you know, in my write-up, it's like he has big velocity, he has big spin, he has big extension. That just makes he might be a one-pitch guy right now. You're going to have to work on him on his secondary pitches, but like that fastball feels like it's coming in at you at like 105 with his extension, with his spin, and with his already touching 100.
just please, dear God, don't take a high school pitcher. I can tell you this. I'm pretty confident we want to eliminate some guys. I don't want Brendan Summerhill. You and I both don't want Brendan Summerhill. I know he's a college hitter. I think we can eliminate Luke Stevenson, and I'm pretty sure we can also eliminate Josh Hammond from that list as well. Jack Bauer is interesting, but I don't want them to take a high school pitcher in the first round here. I just really don't, and they probably won't. Like you and I were big on Angel Cervantes before the year. I think that's a guy you can get with your second pick.
Brady Ebel is someone they like. I'll be curious to see. He's at the combine, so that's a name.
I feel like a lot of those guys we're talking about could be their comp pick.
I'll tell you what though. In this draft, it might be the year you take a second rounder in round 1 and spread the money around and get a second rounder in the second round, and a second rounder with your comp picks, and a second rounder, because it's a deep draft, but it's not a great draft.
This is the same value, same kind of decision making they made in 2016 when they took Will Benson in the first round and took Nolan Jones in the second. So that could be a way to go. Yeah, Brady Ebel for sure. I like Broxell a lot. I don't know where you're at in Broxell, but I like him a ton.
I'm out. I sell his stock.
I don't want Charles Davalon from Arkansas, where I think we're both out on Ethan Petrie. I like Dean Curley a little bit, but I don't know how. Tennessee guys just haven't produced a ton of great value, truthfully, as much as I tend to love them.
Gavin Killen, if he's there, I'd love. I just don't see it happening. Same thing with Tyler
I don't
Bremner.
see him falling.
Those are the dreams. Those two are the dreams you hope slide.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. I'm going to say college pitcher or prep hitter is probably the way they go at 27. But I think there's a ton, like you said, you can go with a guy who is a quote unquote second rounder, move him to 27, and then take somebody else.
I think it could be anything. I gotta be honest. It's such a bad.
It depends on how things go.
I think it could be anything.
All right. Speaking of the draft, Jeff, we got a question from one of our insiders who wants to know how we feel about the Guardians' pre-draft scouting and where that compares to the rest of the league. We'll get into that next on the rest of today's mailbag edition of Locked On Guardians. Stay tuned. You never want to miss a phone call in business. Any kind of opportunity that comes your way, trust me, I know this. I check emails. I don't check phone calls, but I know that every missed opportunity is money left on the table. Even here at home, when I've got HVAC issues, when I've got plumbing issues, electrical issues, I don't wait until I can get a call back from the first vendor I call. I call the first person that answers. And you know one who can help you with that? That is where you have to have open phone. That's why having a reliable business line is so important. That's what they do for you to streamline and scale your communications, all from an app on your phone or your computer. You won't have to juggle two phones at once to keep business and personal calls separate. Everybody can kind of handle the calls, and everybody knows who's handling the calls. It's even going to give you great things like AI summaries on calls. It's also going to give you after all hours calls, giving you answers to common questions, so you never miss any leads or any customers. Open Phone right now is offering all of our Locked On Guardians listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnMLB. That's openphone.com/LockedOnMLB. If you have an existing number with another service, Open Phone will port them over for you at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Thanks for tuning in to Locked On Guardians today. And again, always making us your first listen. We really appreciate all of our everydayers, all of our insiders, and everybody else who shows up here, even when the times are tough, giving us great mailbag questions. Make sure you're checking out things like MLB Game Night for reactions around the league, including our reactions to Guardians games, whether they're playing late or early, whenever, or when news happens. And of course, you can check out the MLB Squad Show. This week, we're talking Devers trade. We're talking the trade deadline. We're talking All-Stars. So lots of good stuff coming this week on the MLB Squad Show. You can get all of that by making sure you hit the bell on YouTube to never miss a video. Make sure you're auto-downloading on audio so you never miss an episode there as well. That helps us out a ton, too, so we appreciate that. All right, let's get to Matt M's question, Jeff. He wants to know where we think Cleveland's pre-draft scouting ranks in the majors. You've got some really good data to back this up. I'll give you more of the narrative side of things. I say scouting high school players is very hard. Cleveland is often a team that gets to know players very well. Projecting forward is hard. They are a very model-heavy team. They do go with the model quite a bit. But they go back to high school, and they keep tabs on guys. And all teams do this. They keep tabs on guys from high school who they like to go to college. They spend a lot of time with players getting to know them off the field, which is important, I think. Because you get a sense for how they're going to work, if they're going to be able to work on things and how they are as teammates. That makes a big difference. But the thing that's hardest to do, is evaluating any hit tool, especially a high school players' hit tool. And obviously, they've done a very bad job of that on the hitting side of things.
And
On
everyone
the
does.
college, everyone does. It's just a very hard process. And some of that, I don't think all falls on scouting either, by the way. I think pre-draft scouting is one thing. I think because you're handing off the guys you scout and draft to your development team, that all has to work together. So it's really a team thing when guys develop or don't develop, because very rarely do you take a guy, especially in high school, and you can say, well, this guy is going to develop into this. You go through and you think of the things he does well, the things he could improve upon, and what you think is projectable with work. But it's really up to the player to go in and like let's go back to the Doug Nikhazy example, right? Doug Nikhazy, great college pitcher, right? He had a great success at Ole Miss. I think a lot of people were concerned about the control issues. Came into this organization, had a very hard time with control. Took a couple of years. He's not much better now, not a ton better, but it took him 4 years to change his pitching mechanics because what he was doing wasn't working. But Cleveland wanted him to change that sooner. Sometimes it's on the player, and that's why you get to know him ahead of time. Sometimes it's on the development team for not recognizing certain things. So as far as pre-draft scouting ranks in the majors, I would say they're still pretty good compared to the rest of the field, but it has to be a whole thing. Like it has to be a tandem thing with player development and scouting.
I also think you can't make those adjustments with hitters that you can make with pitchers. Like hitters are kind of, we talked about swing decisions don't change for the most part. It never changes.
Right, mechanics can change. You could change a guy's setup in the box.
And
you
launch.
Can have him go through things like bat speed camps, things like that. But with pitchers, there's a lot more with biomechanics and all those things.
There's no one thing with a hitter where you're guaranteed this guy's going to be able to hit is the problem. Like there's we can look at a bunch of stats and a lot of, StatCast stuff and try to forecast what we think is going to be successful. But I'll go back to the fact that, some of the best minds in the business said, Naquin and Zimmer in back-to-back years had the best hit classes in their draft. And I love Jim Callis to death, but he wrote about that at Baseball America. And the Baseball America staff at the time agreed. We don't evaluate hit tools well. We don't really know how it's going to work. Like it seems like it's an inexact science. I know the organization, brought in Joe Torville, who I think the world of, and I think he's a really smart guy and he's coming up with some things, but like going through his articles, like again, when it writes about stuff I don't always understand, but like Joe still missed. There's no, silver bullet when it comes to hitters. They're kind of harder than pitchers. Like you can to a better degree be like, well, at least this guy's got these two amazing out pitches, so he has a good chance to be a reliever because his control is good enough and his command is good enough. It's harder to evaluate a hitter. And I will say, up until recently, I think they had a very, very flawed approach with hitters. They went for contact above everything, and that's the wrong way to go because of what I just talked about. You can't evaluate hit tool. You can't say for sure this guy's going to be a 300 hitter. You can't. So when you go for high contact at the cost of everything else, that's how you get Ernie Clement. And Ernie Clement's looking like he's going to be at least a platoon player, like a solid big leaguer. But you need power. You need those other traits, and they spent years not going for it. Now I will say that has shifted, but they spent about 5 years.
It's the first round.
Yeah, it shifted last year of a few of the other players that they grabbed at various points. Trying to think who it was, but like there's
a lot of high school pitching. I don't know about bats.
There's a few interesting guys, but like I think there's at least it's not contact. Now everyone talks about how good the Dodgers are, and I just want to point this out. Like I think the other problem is people don't understand how prospects work and how the draft works. It is the ultimate crapshoot. Like that's just what we have to be honest about. Like the Dodgers, everyone loves the Dodgers to death. In the fourth round since 2000, they have produced two big leaguers. And you're like, oh, that's the fourth round. That doesn't matter. How about the third round? That's a pretty important round. They have produced the best player as Ryan Pepio, Connor Wong, second best. The Dodgers have produced since 1998. Again, this is the best of the best who has the money to spend. And they're also drafting around where the Guardians have drafted in this time. Second round, you got Verdugo, and then you have to go back to Jonathan Broxton. And their third best guy since 2000, Joel Hannaran. And their fourth best, do you know who Paco Rodriguez is? Because Justin didn't remember before the show. And if you go to their first round, like the Dodgers, again, this team, Kellen Lindsay, I like that pick. He slid to them. We'll see how that goes. Kendall George has been a huge disappointment. Year before that, Maddox Bruns, huge disappointment. Bobby Miller has great stuff. He's Gavin Williams. Cody Hose had a huge year at Tulane and hasn't gotten up to the, never has touched the big leagues. They traded Bush. Jaron Kendall before that, like no one is bulletproof. Like the plain simple fact is if you're hitting on 1 in 4 of your first rounders, you're a Hall of Famer. Like that's just what it comes down to. If you are at 1 in 4, that is as good as anyone is. And honestly, if you get 2 guys out of a draft who are major leaguers, like I'm not even saying starters, major leaguers, that is considered a good draft. So I think we also can't take the mindset of other sports. Now, and people love to throw around stuff. I know there's that recent thing about, from this period to this period, they didn't produce anything. Well, I'll also say, like, there was a period, that time period, like 19 through 23, it was really bad in the minors because they have not been good with Latin American swings, and they were drafting at the back of the first round, and they didn't have as many picks. And, signing Edwin cost them a first, and that thing, or I'm sorry, yeah, it did cost them their first, and little things like that.
Holmes, yeah.
That situation was, they had a weak minors for a reason. When you're good for a long time, there aren't a lot of teams that can still fly at the top. So, now with some lower picks that they've had, you expect some more guys to start to come, but people are going to call me an apologist again, but that's just the draft. I covered this thing longer than anyone.
Any team. It's not just the Guardians. It's any team.
And
you're talking about every team right now.
I've been covering it for so long. I've been, talking with teams, knowing teams. Every team I've ever talked with has said, if we get 3 guys who make the big leagues, it's a successful draft. They don't say 3 guys who start. They say 3 guys who make the big leagues out of that was back when there was 30 picks, 40 picks. 3 guys who make the big leagues, we had a good draft.
Probably less now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, I definitely agree. And the Latin American approach, I'd like to see change, because you talked about how things might have changed a little bit in terms of the amateur draft. They are still very focused on contact, but in the amateur ranks, because a lot of the guys they bring over from the amateur side of things don't have a lot of power. Like Angel Henao and Uniker Casares, who is still 17 in the ACL, so there's no guarantees there, are the only guys that have really shown any power from that side of things. Like Junior Sankinton. Morejo's a big tool guy, but he just can't make any contact right now. It's worse than we thought, unfortunately. But yeah, they still tend to go to safety over there. So maybe that needs to change a little bit too. But you're talking about evaluating 16-year-olds, which is even harder than evaluating 18-year-olds and 22-year-olds, which is why, A, college is a good way to go, and B, I still think the Guardians are smart by saying that they value the Cape, because very rarely do guys, like Jeff has said, fail on the Cape and do well in the majors. Very few.
Pete Alonso is the only example I know.
Yeah, and even though there's no guarantee that's successful, it's still a data point that makes a ton of sense, and it's a good one to go on. All right. The Guardians, unfortunately, start at 9:45 tonight, so we will probably not. We won't have all of the information from that game in Wednesday's podcast. We will join in progress, kind of talk about the games that's going on Tuesday, but we'll get to some leftover questions. We're going to talk about the Guardians hitters and where they're standing in the box. They've got a lot of hitters right now who are maybe standing too far away from the plate. We'll get into that on Wednesday as well, and we will talk about the futures game. So tune in for that.
Thank you for joining us, and go Guardians, go.